Welcome to CRJ 422 Criminal Justice Capstone Course. I am your instructor, Lynn Dory. In week 1, we will be discussing how to write your final research paper in week 5. Welcome, and I look forward to working with each of you in the next 5 weeks. In week 1, we will be discussing the following learning objectives: developing a thesis statement and resolution for a social and criminal justice issue, evaluating your position on the effectiveness of the criminal justice system, analyzing scholarly articles related to social and criminal justice, describe your past and potential future plans in social and criminal justice. So the chapters we're going to discuss in week 1, chapter 1 is the overview of a research paper, chapter 3 is generating research topics, chapter 4, strategies for reviewing the research, chapter 5, how to critique a journal article, and chapter 8, criminal justice overview. So let's begin. Chapter 1, research papers in social and criminal justice. So why is writing a research paper important? According to Robinson and Landrum, every facet of the social and criminal justice field, practitioners write, and they need to write well. Many criminal justice practitioners at some point in their careers have the opportunity or are required to conduct research. Beyond good skills in English writing, social criminal justice students also need to comprehend writing in APA style and format. There are 7 aspects for writing a research paper. They include literature review, purpose of the study, thesis statement, organization and flow, sources, APA formatting, grammar and word choice. We will be discussing these further in the class. Robinson and Landrum provide a checklist of the steps to be completed in writing a research paper. First one is choosing a topic. We will do this in our first discussion question this week. Writing a thesis statement. You will also construct your thesis statement this week. However, Ashford does provide a lot of resources for you if you need them. Third, selecting quality sources. We will be finding our sources for our final paper in our week 2 assignment. And lastly, narrowing the information, which you'll be able to work on in week 4 and week 5. So why do we need an outline? Well, an outline is important when starting your research paper. An outline is a summary of written work or speech, usually analyzed in headings and subheadings. There are 2 types of outlines, formal and informal. A formal outline includes Roman numerals and specific rules. Informal outline includes a thesis statement and bullet points. On page 25 of our textbook, you can find examples for informal and formal outlines. In week 2, we'll be constructing our outline for our week 2 discussion. So start thinking about how you will write your outline and what you will include. Plagiarism is a major issue that should be avoided. If you have not checked out the video tutorials that Ashford provides regarding plagiarism, please check out the link provided in the week 1 transcripts. Have you ever used the program Turnitin? This program will determine the amount of unoriginal work in your paper. To access Turnitin, please look to the left-hand side of our classroom under the heading Course Resources. If you click on Turnitin, there is a job aid to give you instructions on how to access the Turnitin program. After you submit your paper, it will give you a percentage of how much of your work is considered unoriginal, which means how much of your paper is retrieved from sources. In this class, your paper should not contain more than 20% unoriginal work. If your paper contains more than 20%, there are 3 ways you can fix it. Reduce the amount of unoriginal work, add more of your own words, or paraphrase your unoriginal work. Steinberg provides 4 suggestions to writing a research paper. They include: use vocabulary appropriate for the reader. Since our papers are considered research papers, your paper should not contain slang words, texting lingo, etc. Second, maintain an appropriate level of formality in writing a research paper. For our papers, you will not use I, since our papers are not considered opinion pieces, but rather research papers. 3, include only details that are relevant to the reader. And 4, students should avoid all use of abbreviations. Chapter 3, we will learn how to generate topics. For our final paper, you will choose a problem within the criminal justice field. Some examples could include racial disparity, prison overcrowding, private prisons, etc. When thinking about topics, consider the following suggestions. The criminal justice system is composed of 4 components: law enforcement, courts, juvenile justice, and corrections. When thinking about a topic, below are a few starting points. Observation, vicarious observation, expand on previous topics, focus on a practical problem. When selecting a topic, think of the following. A theory is a statement that contains facts that are researched and tested to evaluate the merits of the theory. Please see Table 3.1 on page 50 for examples of theory and research examples. When selecting a topic, it is important to choose a topic that is not too broad or not too narrow. Robinson and Landrum stated that you should conduct a database search to determine if your topic is too broad or too narrow. On page 54, please see the tips on selecting a research topic. Chapter 4, we will be discussing strategies for reviewing research. So, how do you find sources? The first step in writing a research paper is to find the appropriate literature. Most likely, you will use the following databases in your search: ProQuest, Project Muse, eLibrary. On page 59, under Tips and Tools, it will help you make the most of the databases. Also, please see page 60, Table 4.2. Another option for you to use is the reference librarian. A reference librarian is a person who has been educated and trained to help others locate reference material to consult in order to determine whether government databases may be of value. In our first written assignment, Journal Critique, we will be using the technique treeing. Treeing is when you examine the reference section of an article to determine whether some of the sources cited may be of value as part of your current research project. You can see examples of treeing by visiting our textbook and checking out page 62. You will look for sources that either contradict or support the journal article you are reviewing. If your article does not have any sources, you can always use outside sources to complete this part of the assignment. A primary source is an original document. A secondary source is an article of review of an original document. When possible, try to use primary sources. I would always recommend using the Ashford Library to search for your sources. When you narrow your search in the library to scholarly journals, you are guaranteed to only use scholarly sources. The Ashford Library has scholarly and non-scholarly sources, so it is important to narrow your search. To the left is a screenshot of the Ashford Library on how to narrow your search in the library. So how do you determine expertise? Robinson and Landrum state that sometimes research can have an anonymous author due to academic retribution. Expertise is defined as the skill of an agent. In analyzing the expertise of an author and the material, students should be aware of 2 factors. Just because the author has a degree does not mean that they are an expert, and just because an internet source as edu is part of the URL does not mean the authors are experts. Currency refers to the publication date of the journal or article. With the journal article, the year of publication should be clearly identifiable, as should the journal's volume number and the issue number. With web-based information, it is much more difficult to determine its publication date, which is why ND is used in references at times meaning no date was located. Next, we will discuss bias. Bias is defined as a particular tendency or inclination, especially one that prevents unprejudiced consideration of a question. Prejudice. In your written assignment this week, you'll be discussing the bias in the journal. The different types of bias include language, study quality, publication, database, funding, and gray literature bias. Chapter 5 will be critiquing a journal article. Robinson and Landrum have identified several effective methods for critiquing a criminal justice journal. The identification of an author and formal citation of the source, summary of the main points of the article, and analysis and evaluation of the article. The next one is holistic critique, which is an effective approach to conducting a journal article. Can be achieved by the following. Has the researcher selected an important topic? Is the researcher reflective? Report cohesive? Is the research likely to inspire additional research? Does it help with decision making? And so forth. Another method is the Q&A critique. This critique would ask key questions while reviewing the article. Bloom's Revised Taxonomy is an organization scheme arranged in hierarchy from less to more complex and is based on information and knowledge that educators want students to master. There are 6 levels: creating, which is producing new work; evaluating, which is justifying a standard decision; analyzing, drawing conclusions; applying, using information in new situations; understanding, which explains ideas; and remembering is recalling facts and concepts. According to Bell, there are a few problems with non-scientific evidence. Observations from a few people may be used as evidence. The observations are not repeated and carefully checked. Observations are not written down as they occurred. The people being observed are rarely representative of a larger population. Important terms are not precisely defined, and sometimes the definitions of the key terms change. A comparison group or comparison condition is rarely available. Control over important variables is impossible. All of the evidence is not used. And some writers has bias that interfere with objective observation and make it difficult to separate evidence from opinions and value judgments. In Chapter 8, we're going to discuss the criminal justice system. There are 3 branches of the criminal justice system: law enforcement, courts, corrections. All branches exist on all levels of government, which means local, state, and federal. All 3 levels do overlap in some ways. The branches of the criminal justice system must work together in order for this system to run properly. The U.S. Constitution and amendments are put in place to protect the citizens of the United States. We will be discussing our rights in the following weeks. So what are laws? Laws are a system of rules which a particular county or community recognizes as regulating the actions of its members and which it may enforce by the imposition of penalties. Below are the types of laws, which include criminal, civil, case, administrative, procedural, and substantive. You can read more about laws in our textbook in Chapter 8. Robinson and Landrum mentioned issues in law enforcement, which are legal issues, search and seizure, Miranda warnings, which we'll be discussing in the upcoming weeks, contemporary issues, corruption, discretion, use of force. There are also issues in the court system: sentencing, capital sentencing, legal and social issues, alternative courts such as drug courts. There are also issues in corrections, legal issues, prisoners' rights, overcrowding. And lastly, issues in juvenile justice, waivers to adult court, school and crime violence, prevention strategies and programs such as DARE. This week you'll be constructing your thesis for your final capstone paper. In the following slides I have provided tips on how to construct a strong thesis along with finding the thesis generator located within the Writing Center. The thesis generator is a great source to help you construct your thesis for your discussion question this week and for your final paper. To find the thesis generator, you will need to click on the Writing Center and Library, which is located in our classroom homepage, located on the left-hand side of the page. Once you click on the Writing Center and Library, you will see the screen Writing Resources. You will then see Thesis Generator. Click on the Thesis Generator to construct your thesis. Once you click on the Thesis Generator link, this is the screen that you will see. You will fill in the information and click Submit, and the Thesis Generator will produce a thesis for you. Above are some tips for writing your thesis statement. For your journal article critical analysis assignment, you will need to purchase a separate book. If you go under the class homepage to the left-hand side, you will see Course Materials. If you click on Course Materials, you will see the following screen, which shows you how to access the journal for your first written assignment. If you have not already done so, please contact your advisor on how to obtain this journal. So let's get to work. If you have any questions about the material, journal assignment, or discussions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me.